To me, Tyreek kind of falls into the same category as somebody like a Mariah Carey, where like a lot of people had to see her as black because a lot of people's desire for blackness is only going to be in a Mariah Carey form. The reason why people are white passing, trying to use that now just like doesn't make sense, because I feel like people are hoping that white passing people will take their resources and pour it all back into the black community. But it's like, that's like not, it's not always, they shouldn't be expected to do that, because also they're not moving in the world as a black person. Like,
sometimes it don't make no sense. Does it really have to? There is nothing I can say.
Hi, welcome to Mayowa's World. Hi y'all, welcome to Mayowa's World. My name is Mayowa, and on my platform I talk about colorism, texturism, featureism. Today we're going to be talking about what it means to be white passing in 2025. So today's video is actually inspired by the movie Him and how people and the conversations that I'm seeing people talk about Tyreek and his positionality with his race, but also just things that I've noticed around racial discourse. So y'all, if you haven't joined my Patreon, you should join my Patreon. I'm just going to keep promoting my Patreon because I have some news coming up, some good news. But today we're going to be talking about white passing and why I think it's redundant to be white passing in 2025. So white passing really has to do with when during slavery, there were some people who their complexion was white, but they were still people who were descendants of, say, a black mother and a slave master, and like obviously that's not consensual. And so these people would kind of have these identities in America where they were being maybe perceived as white, but black people knew that they was another story to the background. And a lot of times they were able to do this to maybe escape racism, or in some kind of heroic senses use the privileges that they're able to get in these white spaces to maybe pour back into the black community. But I am always frustrated with how people talk about white passing today in 2025. I grew up here in the South, and I've heard people use the word white passing before for individuals. And I've also seen people who aren't black use the word white passing, which I thought is weird. Do you know what I mean? Like if somebody's like, oh, I'm white passing, because it's like, it's not the same history. Like if you're like Arab, but you look white, saying you're white passing, I feel like you should just say you're white. Do you know what I mean? Like, but I feel like a lot of people don't like to say that they're white. You know, people saying you're white is a very loaded thing to say. You know, a lot of the rhetoric around white passing is kind of like, I didn't choose to be this light. Like people in 2025 are saying, I didn't choose to look like this. I didn't choose to have my color like this. I didn't choose to have blue eyes. I didn't choose to have blonde hair.
To be me, I'm proud to be black. I'm proud to be this, whatever the case. And I've had white people treat me like shit and be like, fuck you, you know? Like, oh yeah, I'm white. In my blood is the slave and the master. But he was born with the white privilege. I should be ashamed to be black. And some black people look ashamed when I rap. Like my great granddaddy didn't take a whip to the back.
And it's like this narrative frames your parents' relationship as if it was forced upon them. And like your white mom choosing to be with a black man or consensually choosing to be in a relationship outside of their race wasn't by force, right? And white passing, the reason that it was coming up as it was is because the people's complexion getting lighter wasn't by choice. So using that same language in 2025, I just think is so pointless, because your parents got together through consent. So it can't be compared to the past. And I think trying to hold on to it creates this like, it kind of goes back to the tragic mulatto, which I talk a lot about on my channel, about how it's like, oh, woe is me. I didn't choose to have these privileges. But at the end of the day, if you're someone who is perceived as white, if you have blonde hair, if you have blue eyes, and you're perceived as white, you have more privilege than a black person. So why do black people have to be more sympathetic and have more space for someone who's white passing? And something that I thought was really interesting was that there was an interview with Tyreek, who he played in the movie Him. I watched this movie last weekend. I did not like the movie. And it was annoying because some people were like making it seem like if you didn't like the movie, you weren't deep enough to understand what it really meant. And I'm like, I didn't feel like it was deep. Like, I didn't feel like it was that deep. Like I understand the parallels between football and how football is like the deterioration of people's bodies and like the harm that comes with that, all under the search for like fame. And I can also acknowledge that having Tyreek play this, somebody who is perceived as white, or a mixed race person who has blonde hair and blue eyes, having him play that also to me takes away from the fact that a lot of times within football spaces, how colorism intersects with football or sports in general is something that's like very potent. Like the reason that a lot of times injuries happen or people are discarded whenever they're football players, or the people who have CTE and it goes undiagnosed for many years, when I've seen that, they've been dark-skinned people. Because there's assumption that dark-skinned people can handle a lot, can deal with a lot, can be have a lot put on them. So I just kind of feel like having somebody who is mixed race, who is not black, who to play that, I just kind of feel like takes away from the actual power that you can kind of have about these relationships to how football and colorism play a role. But obviously, I didn't write the movie. But I just thought, I saw an interview with him where he was saying that, you know, he can acknowledge his plight as a black man, but also can acknowledge the privileges that he has as a white passing person.
You mentioned being white passing.
Yeah.
For you, you said, I'm black, I'm mixed, I'm white passing. It seemed like you identified yourself as a black man, but you had to also understand that you're mixed. And then you had to also understand that you're white passing, right?
Yeah. My dad's a Black American from Chicago. My mom's white from Maine, and I'm the only one from Jacksonville, Florida. But yeah, you know, I grew up not in the Black experience, you know, so I identify as a Black man, but I never want to take up space and say my experience is just as difficult because, you know, I think the way I look, you know, I grow my hair out, my hair's straight. My brother had the curly hair. And so, yeah, I walk through the world with privilege. So I'd be remiss to not mention that.
And the comments were really interesting to me because there were a lot of people saying, white passing, honey, we knew you're black. We know you're black. You are a black man. And one comment I thought was really interesting where somebody was like, this is what we wanted Tyler to say. Like, why didn't Tyler say this? And that was like kind of interesting to me because it made me realize that some people were upset with Tyler because Tyler did not want to say that she's a black woman who's also a mixed woman, who's also perceived as a mixed woman, who also really acknowledges black people. Like this whole speech that a lot of times mixed race people are to do, because she didn't do it, she like stepped out of the script. What I also find interesting is that Tyreek is just as black as Logic. They both have a light-skinned father and they both look fully white, and I'll put up pictures of them next to each other. But I think people understand that Logic is corny, but people are very quick to call Tyreek black. And I don't know if it's because Tyreek is in the beginning of his career, and maybe when Logic started his career, people were also saying that he was a black man and that's why he got confident and started writing these ridiculous lyrics. But I also feel like desirability plays a role because Tyreek is more conventionally attractive. I also found Tyreek's old YouTube videos, and there was like an interview that he did that I thought was interesting because he was talking to a white woman on the street who clearly has a fetish for black men, and she dismissed Tyreek because she said he's white and that's not her type.
You got the height, but you white, you know. I do like the.
I'm mixed.
Oh, you mixed? Oh, okay. So you gotta. I'm gonna give you a 9.5. You know what I'm saying? Because you got the height and the color.
White people also perceive him as white, and he might have to tell them that he's mixed. But from this girl's eyes, she clearly didn't see him as a non-white person. She did not sexualize him as a black man because she didn't see him as black. I feel like there's this like desire for people who are white, perceived as white, to like not abandon their blackness. Like I feel like people get really personal at the abandonment of mixed race people not saying that they're black. And I think that really does speak to low racial self-esteem because you feel like you need them to be black to make you feel better about your blackness. But it was just interesting because it's like he was able to respond in a way that a lot of people found acceptable. And then because he did, a lot of people were saying like, no, you are a black man. You look like a black man. You're not white. You're not me. So it was like a whole discourse again around his identity of him, even though he when I was watching the movie, he literally had straight hair growing out his scalp, like straight hair, blue eyes. A lot of women found Tyreek to be attractive. And because he was attracted to a lot of people, they had to justify it and say he's black. And that's the shit that really be gagging me is like when you let desirability dictate what you find attractive. Like you can't just say, oh, I found him attractive. Like he's like a mixed white looking boy, like I find him attractive. No, he has to be black, because you got to justify why you find him attractive. And there's not that many like white stars like that for men, but there are a lot for women. And that's kind of how we're able to be where we are. Like, to me, Tyreek kind of falls into the same category as somebody like a Mariah Carey, where like a lot of people had to see her as black, because a lot of people's desire for blackness is only going to be in a Mariah Carey form. You know what I mean? And it's just like, even when I was watching him and they were making so many jokes around him being light skinned and just a light skinned man and and it's like, that's not light skin. Like, even when you say stuff like that, it actually takes away from people who are actually light skinned and black, like who, though the term really has meaning for them. I remember I heard a white person say, it's not my fault I'm light skinned. I'm like, you are white skinned. There is no light skin literally is a term from the black community. Like, you can't just take that and say you're white skinned. So it's just interesting how desirability dictates who people want to see as black, and how, you know, there's a certain dance that is expected of mixed people to like acknowledge everything and say that they're everything all at the same time. And like, you know, when I heard him say like he acknowledges the fact that he moves to the world as a white person, I was like, okay, yeah, fair. Like, you know what I mean? But then people were denying that. So, and I was just also thinking about how many films we've watched this year that have also had like presence of white passing people. Like, I remember when in Sinners, you know, Mary was a white passing person. And I think the actor is actually not white passing. I think they just got a white woman to play a white passing person. But it just also doesn't really matter, right? Because a lot of people were convinced. They were like, oh yeah, I could see her. She has black features. And it's like, she just had brown hair. She just had brown hair. And it's like trying to use that the reason why people are white passing, trying to use that now just like doesn't make sense, because I feel like people are hoping that white passing people will take their resources and pour it all back into the black community. But it's like, that's like not, it's not always, they shouldn't be expected to do that, because also they're not moving in the world as a black person. Like, their relationship to blackness is going to be maybe through seeing one parent who is black, and maybe through being in spaces with that one parent. But that doesn't take away from the fact that they are having a completely different lived reality than somebody who is fully black. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.